I forgot to put on approval of the agenda, which we had on there, which is good because I want to switch some things up. I want to flip 4 and 5 ahead of 3 so that we have the 2 items that we have left out for a vote, and we discuss those first before we get to the final report, so we can go. We'll have basically everything decided by the time we get to the final report. So if that's acceptable, we'll just, is there a motion to approve that adjustment to the agenda?
Approval.
Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We do have public comment. Ms. Goodman?
I just, again, want to say thanks to all of you for being so open, and I would like to actually thank Mayor Berry too, because it's my understanding that this task force does not need to be handled like an open meeting, and so by him authorizing that or approving that and allowing public comment, it says a lot about his intentions of trying to make our government better. So, and thank you for the comment that you put in there. I'll figure out what to do with that and how to move forward with that. So I just would like to say thanks to all of you, and I especially want to say thank you to you, Mr. White, because Chairman White, sorry. Because I learned just by observing you how to conduct meetings. So it was very helpful. You know, it can be difficult at times, and you've been very diplomatic. So there's a lot of good things that are coming out of it, and I actually may end up writing an article and using these videos if it's okay with you, because you know people will be seeing it, to see how civil conversation can occur with very differing views and stuff. So I just want to say thank you again.
All right. Well, we thank you for your participation. I think it's important that that take place, and we probably didn't get as much as we should have, and that's the way things are right now. But we do thank you for being almost a member of the task force.
I pushed my way in one way or another. Thanks so much, and I thank you for letting me feel like I've been heard. I think that's really important, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. We do have one other person signed up, Tad, who there are 2 meetings scheduled right now, and he was going down to another one, so I will fit him in for a couple of minutes at an appropriate point when he gets back.
Excuse me, I didn't know there was a sheet to sign up. Could I?
Sure. If you'll just state your name and I'll...
My name is Charles Harrison.
Here, what I need.
You go, Charles.
I can get the Charles probably.
Yeah. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of the items you got here on your agenda about this failure of officials to make necessary appointments. And I'm assuming that you're talking about to boards and commissions, those types of things. There's a situation, I'm not sure I understand, I know the name of the board.
Cable board.
Cable board. Apparently, there's been a lack of appointments to that board, and they oversee what is it here in Albuquerque?
Like the Comcast
franchise? Comcast and that, and also the
Public access.
Public access, right? And it's my understanding that there's some issues with, I believe the outfit's called U-Public, that the city is contracted with for public access, that they're not meeting their contract and getting content on the channels. And there's some issues with the previous contract that I understand with a quote unquote that there's some things going on there, and the people that quote unquote are having problems getting documentation out of the city. They're not answering IPRA requests and those kinds of things. And I'm also aware of another, the personnel board. I don't know if you all are familiar with the personnel board, but the personnel board has operated for several years with only members appointed by the mayor and missing members that are representative of the employees. And it was only here until recently that one of the employee unions actually had to sue the city to get their representatives appointed to that board. So what was happening is the employees were voting for representatives, but the mayor wasn't bringing those appointments to the city council for approval. So there's some pretty serious issues there. And it doesn't seem to be that there's any ramifications with it when this doesn't happen. So I don't know if there needs to be something changed in the charter as to time limits when somebody has been brought forward to be appointed and the mayor simply doesn't bring the appointment to the city council for approval. You know, something needs to be done there. So that's about all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Tad, your timing was perfect.
Thank you. Happy to hear that.
Go ahead and,
I'll let it join me.
There you go, get out of your way.
Okay. We all know each other, but anyway, let's introduce myself. Ted Niemiecki. I just came back from downstairs. Well, here is what I want to show you. That's what Diana was lobbying. If you look at right here, Mayor Richard Berg, nowhere to be found. This time,
Shall I pass this?
absolutely, Director from Family and Community Services. County Manager was always at all kind of meetings has to do with county. So, but Mr. Berry never go. You have to think about it, what to do with him and future mayors. That's what I would like to consider. Now, it's another council winter. I also spoke. Well, triple dipping, etc., etc. Well, we know he retired CO, then he becomes associate superintendent, whatever. So that's 2 jobs. City council, 3rd job. Now he didn't even finish his 1 year as associate superintendent or acting superintendent. He came back and now he joined it. And of course, he paid McCloskey during his campaign running for the re-election. Of course, it doesn't take a genius to figure out. He got job payback as Secretary of State. So that's what kind of people we have in our government. Mr. Berry, he is elected official. We don't have any representation. Now, here is Mr. Winter, and we could go on and on, leases and so on. So much not appropriate is going on, you know. So maybe work something, you know, to get these guys. Well, yes, in fact, I observed, 10 seconds. I observed swearing 3 new, yes, they all put hand on the Bible. 2, go follow the Constitution of United States and laws, and state constitution and laws. Are they practice that? I'm sorry, that's just too much lies, manipulation. So, that's enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted.
thank you, and thank you for participating with us.
I'm so
We do
sorry.
have another person, if you'll,
I don't mean to
Sign
leave, I've
in.
been late, I got way late in traffic, I'm so sorry.
I'm not sure what you were told about what I'm gonna speak to, but I do have to say I'm very grateful that you're looking into the issue of boards that are not being filled. And so what I'm speaking to is a very specific board that to me is not so much that you need to concentrate on that, it's just a microcosm of the macrocosm of what's happening with the city. So I've been involved in as an activist, as a free speech activist from the Bay Area, I've been involved in the shutdown of the public access station. And there are those who claim that it's still extant, but it is not. It is not producing any programming, it's not doing anything. Yet millions and millions, if any of you in this room are Comcast, Albuquerque Comcast cable subscribers, you are paying a 44-cent tax on your bills for a service that is not being provided by Comcast. And the very simple point I'd like to make, and I didn't bring like a ton to hand out to all of you, but you're please welcome to ask me for these documents. But I have the actual contract between the City of Albuquerque and Comcast from 2003. I've got it stating that the oversight committee is something called the Cable Franchise and Hearing Board. The Cable Franchise and Hearing Board is who is supposed to have made the decision about the award of the contract for public access. The council, the cable board, looked through all the documents, looked through everybody's submissions, made a very reasoned, very intelligent decision to go with quote unquote. That decision was then handed to the city council. The city council tabled it, and you will see in my records that it shows up on their meetings as the recommendation is to be voted on. It disappears. It is never voted on. The next city council meetings you see, they've introduced a new resolution to award the contract to the competitor who currently has it and who is driving it into the ground. And what is most disturbing is who is supposed to have made those decisions is the Cable Franchise and Hearing Board. When their recommendation was completely ignored by the council, 2 of them resigned in protest. I'm here representing the very last Cable Franchise Board member who has been asking for 4 years now from the council to get her back up on the cable board, and she has been told flat out, and I'm telling you straight up, it's Jenica Jacoby every time, we don't have qualified members. So I'm just calling, I'm here to let you know that this is probably a very tiny particle of a very consistent pattern that you will see in all of the positions that are not being filled properly by this current administration. And from what I'm hearing from other groups who are dealing with this, the tagline, if it were, is unqualified applicants, which is absolutely absurd in the case of the people that we've had trying to get on this board. So my biggest concern is that you folks, if you have Comcast subscriptions, are paying for a robust public access service that doesn't exist. When we've looked into the money on it, based on investigations the cable board was trying to do, we're looking at like $3 million a year since Comcast signed on in 2003. So over $30 million has disappeared into the ethers, and the institution that's been overseeing it is called the ABQ committee. And who that is, I'm not sure exactly. I'm not sure how they were appointed, because that's not who's contractually supposed to be overseeing it. If you folks look at the Comcast contract, it's supposed to be the cable board. So the ABQ committee, just for your information, is comprised of Rob Perry. It used to be Carolyn Fudge. She stepped out after things got a little noisy. It's comprised of direct competitors with the people running the public access station. Some of them have been on that board for 15 years. Most of them are full-time city employees. Something very rogue is going on with your administration. And it's very apparent. I've got all the documentation. It requires nothing except people in positions of authority to look into it. And again, I'm not asking for special treatment per se for this issue. I'm just saying I guarantee you that the architecture of this is exactly what's going on with every other position that this administration is claiming they can't fill. So I am delighted that you folks are here addressing that, because I think it's the biggest crisis in this city, is that people who are qualified and have very good leadership qualities are being kept from positions that are very important to be filled right now, especially concerning the APD. And the city is using a very blatantly wrongful excuse of lack of qualifications. You should see the resumes of the people I've been trying to get on the board. So anybody that would like some substantive information on that, please, give me your contacts or whatever. I can show up at other meetings. Again, this doesn't have to be an issue about what I'm looking into, but you should understand the architecture of this, because this is how this administration is doing all the things they're doing.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
All right, if there's no questions, then let's move on into the agenda. I will point out that Mr. Antoon is on the speakerphone. And we will now be going, Myra, to, I think we moved 3 down below 4 and 5. So the next item will be, strike that, that's not going to be that. The next item is the public financing issue. That is the issue that came up, whether or not there should be 3 times the initial distribution for the mayor, as opposed to 2 times, which is the case for the city council. One of the questions we had was to confirm that that was in fact the existing practice. And Eric, do you have a report on that?
Unfortunately, I don't have an update now, but I'm still trying, and I'm hoping to have something soon.
Okay. It's my recollection that we had public financing in 2007 and 2009 and maybe 2011, and that the practice was to do twice, that the maximum would be twice the original amount. So that if a councilor got $35,000, then on the initial distribution, they would get $70,000 on the as a maximum. Notwithstanding all of that, the recommendation we've made for the council for the matching funds was for that, with regard to the council. And in the final report, thank you, Bruce, for helping Lindsay and I come up with some language which I think says better than anything, the original charter or anything that's coming forward, what our intent is. And so we will get to that when we get in the final report. So the question now will be whether or not there is any interest in suggesting an amendment that would make it 3 times the amount for the mayor's race. And as I indicated, if there are specific proposals that anyone wants to set forth on that, we can proceed at this time, or we can just let our recommendation on the open and ethical elections provision stand as it is.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move that we let it stand as it is, which is currently, as I understand it for the mayor, is 2 times also.
Right.
That matches the city council, is the current practice.
For the, that is our existing recommendation to them. That's the
Right.
recommendation we made in June.
Okay.
So
That would be my motion.
all right, it's been moved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
I move to bring it to 3 times the amount.
Well, we've got a motion and a second on the table to leave it at 2 times. So
Oh,
is
I
there,
thought you just said that it wasn't,
no,
that the motion was out.
no, there was a motion to leave it and not go to 3 times.
Okay.
So that motion is on the table now. So is there any discussion on that motion?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Antu.
I think for the last couple of weeks we've covered a lot of the reasons why 2 times do not make it really effective to run for mayor in a city with a metropolitan area of $750,000 free reach media-wise. And it, I think, leaves a publicly financed candidate sufficiently financed in comparison to what would be expected of a privately financed campaign.
Okay, is there any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Thompson?
I'm going to abstain because I think that the current language that we recommended and the language that currently exists actually allows for 3 times. And so it's hard to vote on a motion that says we are going to leave it at 2 times. So I can't vote on something that I don't think makes sense.
Well, I understand your problems with the 200%. I think it was the intent of common cause, Heather, is that the language you've been working with in Santa Fe and Las Cruces, was the 200%? I think it was always that was the intent, was 2 times, and yes.
Well, actually, in Las Cruces, we don't have an initial stipend or an initial allowance going into it, so we've just been working on the basis of the 4-to-1 match.
Okay.
And what about, do you recall the situation in Santa Fe?
In Santa Fe right now, the 4-to-1 match, and that's the way that it's been termed as far as I know in the language of the ECRB, is moving actually right now as we speak. They're having their meeting, so.
I'm sorry, just to clarify my question, I was wondering what the situation was in Santa Fe before they moved to the 4-to-1 match, because my recollection was that the matching funds they got were equal to twice the original grant, so meaning the total amount of funds that you would get is 3 times the amount of the initial grant. That's the maximum amount of public funds you could get. And that's my recollection in Santa Fe, and I guess I have a slightly different recollection of the practice here in Albuquerque than our chairman.
And it would have been nice if the clerk had 2 weeks to get this information and wasn't able to accomplish that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just point out, it's very difficult to do anything with this without knowing what the status quo is. I am hearing that you recall it's 2 times, but then there's other people I think maybe 3 times, and I just don't know how we can, other than make a recommendation that it be one or the other.
We could do that.
But if it's already 3 times, we go to 2 times, that might not be what some people want to do. And if it's 2 times and people don't want to go to 3 times, again, it's going to be very difficult it's going to be difficult to know what they're doing without knowing what's going on at the moment.
Perhaps then, and I've got issues. I'm somewhat sympathetic to the idea of 3 times for the mayor's race, but right now there is no money to do that, and it implicates some budget issues as well. Perhaps we could do with this what we've done with others, is just to bring it to the attention of the council that there are issues with relating to the cost of running the campaign. There are budget issues, and that we have not been able to get clear evidence on what the past practice of the city has been, and that would and that based upon those things, we don't have a specific recommendation, but we urge them, or we suggest that they could look at this issue.
Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my motion, so if we can change my motion that we should put this as an issue to be considered by the city council, and that we don't have a vote.
Okay, I'll consider that a substitute motion since I was the second.
I just have a real quick question, because I think Lindsay's trying to put together a floor sub for, okay.
There is a floor sub, but it's a floor sub for what we did in June. Everything else is going to be done by amendment.
Okay.
That's why we're dealing in concepts.
Okay, so this would be one of their
This would be a
concept
concept.
amendments. And there weren't some changes, okay.
Could it be a friendly amendment to also include language that there appears to be ambiguity with respect to what the current practice is and what the current language means?
Sure.
If we're doing that now, instead of when we get to the report, what I was gonna suggest when we got to the report is this would be in the form of another friendly amendment, maybe, that whatever ultimate ordinance is enacted, that it have an actual example using numbers.
Right. What I'll do if this concept passes, while we're discussing the other one, I'll try and come up with some language that we can vote on to place in there with regard to this one.
Could I,
Mr. Chairman, I think it's out of order, point of order, that we have individuals from the public comment period sitting at the table and making comments.
and that's what I was gonna ask is what am I allowed to do and not allowed to do? Yeah.
Nothing at this point.
Yeah, so.
And actually, it would be appropriate perhaps if you...
I'm so sorry.
All right, is there any, Laura?
And I guess I don't see the problem with saying, we think it should be 2 times or 3 times, and the language should be amended to make sure that's very clear, and then what David suggested about having a dollar example or something, but
I can't vote for 3 times at this time.
No.
Oh, okay, no, I mean, I'm just saying,
I think-
if that's where we were going, let's just say it, but, okay, 2 times, and that's it, and just say, that's what we're trying to get to, is 2 times, and just say it that way, so that they know we're not trying to make it so it's,
No,
turns out.
we're gonna vote on language with regard to what we recommend as an amendment to the bill.
Okay.
That we've worked on, and Bruce helped us come up with, that clarifies the ambiguity in the existing charter and in the original proposal.
Great,
That we're gonna actually do.
okay, good.
This is just whether it should be 3 times is something that basically, because of all the
Right.
issues, that we're unable to make a recommendation at this time, but we feel that it's an issue they ought to look at. Doug, you,
Yes, I agree with Laura completely on deciding which way to go. The only thing that gives me pause is your feelings that you couldn't recommend 3 times at this time. Could you explain that in a little more detail?
well, I think there's a lot of, we don't, if, for one thing, if the existing practice is 3 times, which I don't think it is, that's not my recollection, but if it is, then the game over, question over. So there, and we don't have that information. We haven't been able to
I
get
know,
that.
but that's the point Laura made, and that's why I agree with Laura. Whatever the existing is, it's the sentiment of the committee, of the task force to recommend such and such. I agree with that approach, and I've already articulated what my approach would be. I would just like to know if there is, the chairman, who has a heck of a lot of experience in this, feels he could not recommend 3 times, and I'd like to know why.
I think I've said it twice now, I do not feel that we have sufficient evidence before us. There are budget issues, there are issues of what past practice is, there are a number of issues that exist where I'm uncomfortable. I think it is an issue that ought to be explored. I don't know how I feel on it. And until I know how I feel on it, I can't vote for something.
Mr. Chairman, I call the question.
Question's been called for. On the motion for the call to question, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, the question's been called for. If you want to do a specific recommendation, then you would vote against this motion. If you want to go with the kind of general approach of taking a look at this, have the council take a look at this issue, you would vote for the motion. So all in favor of this motion, raise your hand. Okay, all opposed? I didn't hear an indication from you either way, Doug, did you? It was unanimous here.
Yes, couldn't raise my hand.
Okay, all right, that is why language is so important to us, and some of our conversations have been worthy of an examination by Derrida.
Actually, I could have said.
All right. Okay, so, anyway, we have now voted on that. I will work on some language between now and then. When we get to the report, and at the appropriate place in the report, I will read that and see if it's acceptable to everybody. So now we will move to Myra, your issue.
Is the draft handed out, Lindsay, the one that you read?
Yes, we should
Okay,
have it.
what page is it?
Oh, are you talking about what we
What you
worked on?
emailed to me? So what's being passed out now is, what we would be voting on tonight would be the intent. So it's not specific language that we're proposing up or down, but that we're proposing the intent for the council to look at. The concept is that the delay of mayoral appointments can really hinder the city from getting done its business of public safety and other important duties that the city has to go forward with. And so instead of having things come to a standstill, the council would, under this recommendation, have the authority to make an appointment to those vacancies if after 16 weeks, which would be about 4 months, if the mayor's appointment has not been made and finalized, the council could take it, make an appointment so that the business can be conducted. So I ask for your support of sending this to the council, really for their consideration. It's not a specific wording, but it's just consideration of this idea. Bruce?
My one concern is that the place where there's the most conflict, I think, in getting appointments are those committees that don't require advice and consent. Because there's a number of committees where the council appoints some people, the mayor appoints some people, they then select a neutral, and those are the committees, I think, where you're having problems. And when the mayor has the authority to make appointments, there is no advice and consent from the city council on those.
Okay, well, I take that, that is not my language. Maybe I would refer to Bob, because maybe that was his advice and consent to put the advice and consent in here. It's in the first sentence.
We can strike that.
We could strike that. Yeah, I thought the practice had been that there was always an EC or an OC was sent on all of them, but we can take that out.
There's an OC, I think, just for notice of what's going on, there's no advice and consent.
No, that's fine.
And which one, so those are what? Ethics?
Ethics, labor.
Okay.
Another
one where they go back and forth.
Personnel it's some by the mayor, some by the election of the city employees, and then a neutral.
Yeah.
So by removing the language, it's inclusive of all
But
committees?
what about the,
Where the mayor is making the appointments.
Yeah. So for committees where the mayor is making appointments?
what about the committee that Bruce discussed very early on in our work, where they basically broke a dispute between the branches? There's 3 of them. What is it?
Intergovernmental.
No, that's the Charter Interpretation Committee, for lack of a better term, because I don't think it's ever been fully implemented. It was passed in 2009. The council's made an appointment, but I don't think the mayor's ever made an appointment. So that's an example of one.
I'm sorry.
That's an example of
one that wouldn't be included, right?
There's no advice and consent, but if that language is taken out, I think it probably would be included.
Well, well, then you're appointing, then one side of the dispute is appointing the other side's representative as well.
Well, it's because otherwise, there's no action.
It's a pretty good incentive.
Yeah. It's an incentive, that's right,
And
it's
then
an
those
incentive
people pick a third.
that's right, it's an incentive to go ahead and make that appointment, so that
Mr.
business can move forward.
Yes, Myra,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman and Myra,
Yes.
can I be recognized? I just wanted to, I passed out the Public Boards, Commissions, and Committee Ordinance, general provisions, the entire code is at everybody's desk. And I just wanted to point out that under appointments, there's language currently that is a 60-day time frame. The council may notify the mayor in writing that a term has expired or a position is otherwise vacant, and the mayor shall have 60 days to submit a recommended appointment to fill that position. If the mayor fails to submit a name within the 60 days of notification, the council president shall have the right to make the appointment subject to the advice and consent of the city council. So I think that this provides a good guide, and it also provides, in my mind, a guide as to the level of statutory authority. We should be guided by the fact that this is in the language of an ordinance and did not rise to the level of a city charter revision, language. So my point is that, you know, we're basically, the city charter is the constitution of the city of Albuquerque, and that is the broad overarching language. And the ordinances are there so that the city council can pass very specific language about particular issues. So in my mind, whatever we recommend should be at the level of recommending it at the ordinance level and not the city charter level. So rather than tweaking this particular language, I'm just making that comment.
And the way this was drafted, it urged the council to explore legislative measures, which could be an ordinance, it could be a charter provision, could be a resolution, it could be any, it doesn't specifically suggest that a charter amendment be adopted, but that the council explore what might be available in ordinance form, charter form, or other form to fulfill these.
Could we put language in there? I think I'd be more comfortable putting language in there that we don't feel this rises to the level of a city charter change, and then add that language that you just stated.
Well, legislative measures.
Did you read this? This does exactly
No,
what
I
you're
know.
talking about.
I didn't know about this.
So I'm wondering.
Oh, no, let me look, if you go look at it, I think what it does is it only applies to those where the mayor's appointment is dependent upon recommendation of individual council.
No, that is not.
For all public boards, commissions, or committees whose members are not appointed on recommendation of individual councilors.
Well, so then the council, just to clarify, the council already has the authority to do this?
Well, by ordinance they do.
Well, then what's stopping them?
I don't know. Maybe they didn't know about it.
Does anybody, maybe, yeah, I don't know.
My concern would be, this might be in conflict with the charter, and the charter needs to be changed just to make this valid. I don't remember this.
I don't know.
Except the charter says that the mayor makes all appointments except as otherwise provided.
That's right.
By ordinance.
Okay, so it's
This
Yeah.
says otherwise
Okay.
provided by ordinance.
We're done.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, the other issue that I would have is typically the manner of appointing any individual position is specified in the ordinance creating that position. There are changes. Some of them say the council appoints some, the mayor appoints some, and they'll elect third parties between the council and mayor appointed people. Some don't say that. So this has been done very much on a case-by-case basis. This this entire issue's come up kind of late in our process. Back in September, we've been working on some of these things since September. We've had reports. I'd kind of be interested in knowing,
Well,
yeah, how the, sort of a general survey of how these things are generally filled. Plus now we have an ordinance that seems to do the job, that seems to do the work. I'm just not sure we're in a position to take any action at this point.
we might point this ordinance out to them.
Well, if somebody can just point it out privately and say, we have a problem with the issues that were brought up specifically in the public comment, and say, somebody can go to their council, everybody presumably has one, and just go and say, why don't we implement this ordinance? Rather than, you may already have your remedy right now.
I would suggest that the one thing this doesn't apply to is those committees that are created strictly by the charter. And there's a number of those, and I'm not sure this ordinance could change the process that's set out in the charter for appointments. It would apply to the other committee appointments.
So what are examples of that? Would it be like labor
The
relations?
ethics board would have an issue.
That has a built-in
Yeah,
provision
alternating,
like
yeah.
this,
And what
where it
about-
says if someone doesn't do it, then the other one gets to do it.
Other than the task force that we talked about at the start for the mayor appoints, the council appoints one, there's a three-person body to determine what the charter means. I don't think this would control that, because I think that's set strictly by the charter. But other than that, I'm not sure if there's
And what about
any
labor
boards that are
relations?
strictly-
Is labor
This
relations
would
in
be,
the charter?
except that, I guess if the administration did not appoint members to the Labor Relations Board, it would probably fall within this. It wouldn't cover the issue of whether, when labor doesn't come up with a name.
No, but if the mayor doesn't come up with a name.
Then, I mean, I don't want to,
The current
that's
situation.
illegal to
Well,
determine it,
that
but.
seems, I mean, I don't want to do anything that's redundant and unnecessary.
But
No,
Mr.
no,
Chairman-
what I meant was, isn't that an actual example of what's happening? That personnel board has vacancies?
But I think that's related to that's related to issues that wouldn't even apply, that there was nothing the charter could do. I think that's related to some issues, labor management issues. But it would apply to things like some of these other boards. Perhaps we could tweak this a little bit so that it would say something along the lines of that they explore legislative processes which could include whatever they need to do where they are not covered currently by this ordinance.
It's just for the goal of staffing these committees and
Right.
staffing, but to populate these committees and commissions, because I think Myers' point is right on. I mean, that's the whole point of the government, to have these things.
I mean, my intent is to resolve stalled action that impedes the city from moving forward on important business. And that's the intent. And so if they already have the authority, then I guess pointing it out to them is good. And if they don't have the authority, I like the idea of the friendly amendment which is not really an amendment because this isn't really I don't know what you call it.
It's a concept, which
It's
is
a
what we
concept
were
of saying,
forwarding to.
I like the idea of just encouraging the council to find either an existing process or develop a new process that's not currently covered by the ordinance to resolve this issue.
Right. What I'm suggesting is maybe taking out the second sentence, ending it, making some minor modifications, taking out the second sentence. The first sentence would read, the task force considered potential council remedies in the event timely mayoral appointments are not presented for positions that are necessary to conduct important city business. The task force urges the council to explore legislative measures that in the event no mayoral appointment is made within a 16-week period of time, let's strike.
Yeah. I don't need that anymore, it's happening.
We don't need it.
Yeah. Well, but for those areas where it doesn't take place, because I think what we've identified is that there are areas where it's not taking place.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want to put in have everybody perseverate over
whether it's 16 weeks or 18 weeks. So maybe we would just say, at a point in time that the council deems
Right.
effective.
I would just say the last sentence reads, how about something like this? The task force urges the council to explore legislative measures that in the event no mayor appointment is made, the council may appoint a designee for that position in an effort to enable the commission, board, or task force to conduct its business in a timely manner for any commission, board, or task force that is not covered by the existing ordinance.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think that this language is mooted by the fact that we have an ordinance that has language, and we could point out the ordinance and say that further research is required, and then we could add that language you have in there about legislative bodies or whatnot, and then just make it somewhat more general. Because we don't have an analysis from the city attorney. I don't think we can do anything more than that.
Sure.
And this language was written prior to finding this ordinance.
How about something along the lines of, the task force reviewed the existing ordinance and make a citation to it, and suggest the council explore any gaps that may exist in any board or commission that would not be covered by this ordinance.
I could support that.
Okay?
Well,
Yeah.
Chairman?
I don't want to throw a cloud in this.
Here, wait a minute, Doug. I've recognized Steve. Steve, I've recognized Steve. You're next, Doug.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't want to cloud the issue, but I just want to bring up that I'm on the arts board, and at several times during my tenure there have been counselors that have not appointed their people to that arts board. And it's been a problem for us too. So I don't know if there should be a mention of that.
No, I think that's fair. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right.
If it's an answer to Steve, go ahead, and then I'm going to recognize Doug.
I was about to say exactly what Steve said, and this is specific to the mayor. Maybe it could be just general failure of appointment.
Sure.
Specific to the mayor.
I am open to that.
Yeah.
So it's to remedy any cause of a standstill.
Yeah.
I'm open to that.
Doug, and then Bruce.
If I'm hearing correctly, that's exactly what I was asking about. Does it go both ways? You know, if the mayor, if the council doesn't appoint, can the mayor fill the issue, fill the gap?
That's how it's handled on the Board of
That what
Ethics.
just was said by Steve and
Yeah, and I think that's the way it's handled on the Board of Ethics, Laura's pointing out, so that's a good point. Bruce?
Just to clarify, the council frequently on these committees doesn't appoint. What they do is they give 2 recommended names to the mayor. So it should say that the council, if they haven't submitted their recommendations within a certain period of time, that there's some sort of remedy.
yeah, why is that? Why is that method in there? If the council's making a recommendation, oh no, it's the
The mayor's got the
councilor.
authority to appoint.
Yeah, it's the mayor's office that appoints boards and commissions.
But the council also appoints them.
In some cases by ordinance, case by case.
Right. So I think we could go with something, the task force considered remedies in the event timely appointments are not presented for positions to city boards, policy commissions, boards, or task force. The task force urges the council to explore legislative measures that may not be included in Ordinance 2611 for dealing with the issue of the lack of appointment.
I would just add et sec, so that's the whole.
Sure.
That's it.
Lindsay, did you get that?
Yep.
Does that sound acceptable to everybody?
Sounds acceptable to me, except I don't know what add sec means.
No.
Following.
And follow.
And following.
So it includes all of the
Yeah.
You probably want to make it in the form of a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I think it was, I think, Meyer, you made that a motion, I think, somebody made it a motion. Meyer, did you make it a motion?
I made it a motion,
And it's been seconded.
this is a friendly amendment to my motion?
All right, and I was the second, so it's been accepted, so we now have that language, and it will be inserted at the appropriate point in our final report. All those in favor? Aye.
Two ayes.
Opposed? That was unanimous.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
All right,
Thanks for bringing it up.
thanks for bringing it up, and
Thanks for finding that
and
order.
Myra, good I wonder how long it's been in there.
92.
Well, it could be,
It could be, yeah, it could be 09, it could, because I just
Thank you
don't
very much
remember
for
it.
finding that.
Well, you're welcome.
heck, I might have written it and I didn't.
Probably did.
You don't remember.
If it was 09, I would have known.
It's
But it-
better, 60 days.
I love it.
60
I'm relearning everything myself.
Yeah.
So that's,
It's like,
I don't
It's so
even have Lexus.
maybe it like fell behind the sofa cushion.
Yeah.
There you go.
no, it really is. I'm surprised that all of us people who have been, well, and that gives you an indication. Sometimes there are answers to all these problems that come up that are in the existing law, and people just aren't aware of it. And this is a perfect example of one.
It's efficiency.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Mara, for bringing up the issue and coming up with a way to get to it. Myra, thank you for finding, Nina, thank you for finding the ordinance and working on getting some language for us. All right.
Forgetting what you just said.
Okay. We are now going to go to the final report itself, which all of you, I want to thank Mr. Buckholz, Mr. Antoon, for some really good comments and corrections in the original draft we sent out on Monday. We incorporated those in. I want to thank everybody, David, and Bruce, and Laura, and who worked on the original draft. So we are working from the draft that went out yesterday afternoon. Okay? Which is pretty close to,
What were the differences? I didn't have a chance to do side by side.
I have a question. Lindsay, what's your title? Lindsay,
I'm a special projects analyst.
are you an attorney or what?
I'm sorry?
Are you an attorney or what?
Not yet.
You're working on it?
Hopefully, I took the LSAT first.
Dan, you're doing a good job. Really good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
we thank you. All right, I'm going to assume the first pages 1 and 2 are okay, and that we will, if there's any changes in the body of the ordinance, that we will, or in the pagination, that we'll correct that. Are there any questions about my letter?
Just maybe 2 paragraphs, it seems a little long.
Well, why'd you put the mayor of the council? Just being silly.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
would it be possible to put all the board members' names on the letter?
Sure, why don't we do that? Let's put the,
They're on page 1. Move them from page 1.
no, just, we would just list them underneath me on the letterhead, on the report. So it would be, yeah. So it would be all the task force members would just follow me under my name, but I would sign it on behalf of the task force.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I think we also might want to add that we had all of our emails and all the information regarding the task force on the web. So, because, you know, that the public was able to make comment, and we were full disclosure.
We could add that maybe right before the last sentence.
Okay?
The task force
Proceedings,
Members are, the members and emails.
the task force proceedings, agendas,
contact, yeah.
contact information were made available
Public,
on, what do you call that, what's the platform, what's the platform called?
city's website,
On the city, yeah, I think they actually have a name for it, but
city council's website page.
cities, actually, it was, the city councils is on the city, so. All right, good.
And the public has been invited for comment?
Yeah, the public is invited to comment.
And the public,
Oh, it says that already.
The public was also invited.
Oh, it's in there already.
God, Myra.
Good, really, it's like the redundancy department of receipts.
okay, can we move to page 4? This is basically the things that were in the bill that were presented to us.
Redundancy department.
Okay. All right, review and recommendations, Article 5, Mayor revisited, discussion of potential council remedies in the event, blah, blah, blah. We would just insert, Lindsay, do you want Lindsay to read the language again? I tell you what, we'll get a final after adopted, get it out tomorrow, and give people till Monday to make any editorial or
That would be great.
just so we got everything down. So in there, we'll insert the language that we talked about tonight. Okay, any additional, any changes to the Article 13 Election Code Revisited section? Yes.
Just as a clarification, it says in the second point, task force considered an increase to $2,500 from the $1,000 earlier threshold of PAC spending. That's in the definition of a PAC. I thought it ought to be clear where that language shows up so people aren't looking around to find out what we're talking about with the $1,000. That's to meet the definition of a PAC.
Okay, that's a good point. Consider an increased threshold in the definition of a PAC just before 4-PAC spending.
Okay.
All right? With that amendment, is that acceptable to everybody?
Just, Mr. Chairman, point of
Yes.
clarification. What page is that?
5?
Thank you.
Okay. And then we move on to open and ethical elections. Is there any? I want to thank everybody for working on this language. Let's get to the point. Let's do the first part. And we'll just be adding at the end the language we came up with tonight. I think that the language that we came up with really clarifies, I think, what the ambiguity has been, both in the existing charter, which I've read from the beginning, although I can't say I washed my hands of open and ethical elections because the city attorney's office was not allowed to touch it. It was the masterpiece of the Brennan Institute, and the council felt that they were much better than the city attorney's office. So I'll just get that little editorial.
What year was that?
That's 2005.
2005, yeah. All right, then we're satisfied with that language? Okay, then let's go on to the census years. And did we ever get anything from the city clerk or county clerk?
No statements yet.
Get them out. There, they had their chance. And any reference to, you know.
I think we should then, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, why don't we'll re-email them tomorrow and give them till Monday when we'll send this out. How does that
Yeah,
sound?
because then perhaps they were, an invitation was extended and no response was, received or whatever.
I think I would rather, sorry,
You would rather?
I would rather just do a quick summary of whatever critique they had, not a summary, but just say, the county clerk thought this, and the city clerk.
We do have that kind of reflected, I
So
think.
then- Yeah, okay, then I would just cross.
We've
this
got
out.
it in the options. Their concerns, I think, were raised in the 5 options. that we've
Okay.
got.
So remove that?
Unless they, yeah.
Let's leave it till Monday, give them a chance to put in if they want. But just going through the language, I think we have this was put together, and I think Laura and David Garcia, you had input on this one. So I will give everybody an opportunity to go through. If there are no questions.
Is this the 5 options?
And this is going through all the way through 7. Hearing nothing, I'm going to move on, unless I hear something.
Move approval?
I think we're just making a change, and then we'll do final approval at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, potential form of government changes.
What page are we on?
This is page 8 at the top. This is the compromise language, I think. Everybody can look at that again, make sure that it reflects what we had talked about. If not, we'll move on to Board of Ethics. And Bruce, Lindsay and I were trying to remember at the end. You kind of said, well, let's just take it off the table. Did you want to mention it at all? Because I know maybe one of the counselors was interested. They might want to know that we looked at it. But it really is up to you. You raised it and took it off, so we can take this section out if you want. I'll leave it kind of up to you.
Are we talking about the form of government?
No, Board of Ethics.
Oh, Board of Ethics, sorry.
No, it's,
Pardon?
I had no issues with the Board of Ethics, so, as it turned out, after it.
So why don't we just leave this in?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Chairman, do we
Yes.
want to recommend the city attorney's office review the policies?
We've
Do we really
got
wanna
that.
do that?
Yeah, however the task force recommends the city attorney's office review. Yeah, because one of the things one of the things we had talked about was that there was a complaint that some things were not getting heard, and but we talked about the fact, well, they are getting heard, but they're getting disposed of without findings of fact and conclusions of law, which I think Rule 74 and 75 require them, since they're appealable directly to. So there were some things that we learned about it that I think a review of their practices by the city attorney's office would be worthwhile.
Could we maybe mention that some of these issues involve the lack of an investigator or a lack of a...
The problem with that is they have the authority to appoint an investigator.
They got it
right
all.
now.
Oh, they do, okay.
Yeah. And it's a budgetary,
But do they have the resources? I mean, do they have funding?
Yeah. We could put a sentence in, perhaps, that they look at funding.
To provide the investigatory authority that they currently have. Something like that.
how about look at, the task force recommends the city attorney's office review the policies and procedures of the Board of Ethics and the council look at financial support for an investigator
As needed.
for the Board of Ethics.
Oh, you mean a full-time one?
No, it could be part-time. Their auditor is part-time, so it could be just as needed. But just that they look at that issue, because we did talk about that as well. Does that sound fair to everybody?
Yeah, if we put as needed, you can't really do a budget for an as needed, so.
Yeah.
So remove it.
Okay? All right. The disparity in public financing available to candidates. This is again where we wanted to raise the issue. I included something in here that we didn't talk about last time, but happened between now and our last meeting. A great deal of our discussion was about using a population-based formula versus a registered voter formula. And probably by the time the council votes on this, or consider some of these things, the Supreme Court is going to rule that you have to use a voter-based formula on all these election things.
Voter-based,
Yeah,
okay,
it's a case that was argued last week.
okay.
And of course that will, it's, that side of the table, except for Steve, will love it. This side might be a little more concerned about that. But I think it really does affect this whole issue that we're talking about here. And it will affect redistricting, because I think our redistricting is based on population, but our distribution is based on registered voters. So it's really something that they need to follow up on. So
What court case is this?
U.S. Supreme Court. It's a court case out of Texas, and the net effect, and pardon my bias, is it will limit the ability, if you only use registered voters, that it may limit the number of people who are used in counting to see what determines a legislative district. Typically, that's going to be 4 people.
It's going to kill us.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, can you? I'm
Not
sorry.
getting into that. Let's not get into that issue.
Okay.
She's just trying to find where we
So,
are.
so this, yes, I'm, exactly. So
Review of findings of the Board of Ethics, or no, strike that word. The disparity of public financing available to candidates in each of the 9 districts.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, so this is related to that Texas case we discussed?
No, this is related to the issue that we talked about last time, that we said, let's just suggest they look at it, where there's lower, where you've done redistricting, and the districts may be equal on population basis, but they become different on voter registration, that the distribution under public financing results in a substantially lower amount to those with lower voter registration than those with higher voter registration. And
Excuse me?
Yes, Doug?
I don't know what the end result of registration patterns are, but is it rather consistent throughout the districts that 70% of the people register? I know that in general numbers they say, in the city of Albuquerque there are X number percentage of people registered.
Yeah.
But it does vary district to district.
We're not really
you're
talking
saying?
about this.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge,
Hugely?
Yeah.
huge.
And it happened, in the case that brought this to our attention was District 1?
I think it's 3.
3, where the population, upon redistricting, the population was equal to the other districts, but the voter registrations were not. They were substantially out of whack with the other districts.
It's the purpose of the campaigning.
But again, folks, let me remind you, we've already voted on this. This is just to see if this language is acceptable to us.
Well, not acceptable if it sums up what we had already
Did
voted
it
on.
sum up what we've already done? Yes.
Plus it mentions the Supreme Court.
It does mention, you know, that, and I added that in, it does mention that keep an eye on this because this will affect all redistricting matters.
That's
Thank
gonna
you.
end up, no, that's Supreme Court.
Yeah. All right. If there's no other question, let's move on to the reappointment of the city attorney and city clerk.
Mr. Chairman, I would just add United States Supreme Court.
Okay.
So it's clear.
All right. Good point. All right, we are through. Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion to approve the final report?
I so move.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All right, that passed unanimously. That brings us to the end. And, Lindsay, will you get what you got?
You get to thank you guys.
Yeah, we have to
We want to
thank Bob.
thank you guys
Lindsay,
for
thank
giving
Bob.
us so much of your time. So we have a very small token of our appreciation and that tonight.
Alrighty.
I'll give the charter.
I was happy with the
In no particular order, but we have a pack for Mr. Gay again.
Thank you.
Oh, wow.
Can I order takeout?
We'll send you some pozole and some tamale.
Where are you, Doug?
Pretty cool.
I had some surgery today, eye surgery, so it just kind of laid me up.
Well, our thoughts are with you.
I
Well, thanks for
patched
staying
over
off the
my
road.
eye and I stand make ridicule. I would take it when I walked.
Doug, I will make sure that you get your plaque.
Oh, there's a plaque?
Yeah, we're passing out a plaque now. Yeah. If you would have known there was a plaque, you would have had somebody drive you down.
You do your proxies plaques too.
A proclamation and the last one was.
So thank you all for your hard work.
I really let you down, I think.
Okay.
This is cool.
This is just you.
Just a piece of paper.
Where's Paul?
No, it's pretty neat.
Chairman, I'm gonna
Just no signature.
drop off, but I would like to say I appreciated your direction and leadership in this endeavor. A lot of experience and a lot of passion, and it was a pleasure working with everyone. I particularly enjoyed getting to know Steve on this, a couple of tasks that we worked on, and it's really been great company, and I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate your work and all your help and yours and everybody else's. You know, one thing I do not have is, I do not have one of those minds that is detailed. That's why I always had to have an attorney to review contracts before I could sign them.
But you are an attorney.
That doesn't mean I have a good mind for detail. And so all the lawyers, everybody on here just done a terrific job, and so I think let's give ourselves a round of applause. All right, Doug, thanks. Get well. We want your eagle eye out there again, watching over us.
Did you say eagle eye or
Eagle. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's finish up the.
Good to see you, Laura.